Okay, I'm about to start the Magritte study. I've got white, an ochre colour, just kind of looks like a bit like a gold kind of colour, black, and I've also got a scrap piece of paper just to rub off any extra marks from the surface of the pastel, just to clean those up. Right, the first thing to do is very lightly, not outline, but to just add in the darker tones in this case. So very lightly, I'm just going to mark in where those tones are. What I could also do is just put a light touch of the ochre colour. I'll do that in a moment. So I'm just marking in where the creases are in the image, the different folds in the material over the figure's face. Very lightly. I'm not pressing down dark. You can see some of the paper coming through. A light mark. Using the side of the pastel, just put a light covering just in a few places, just over the main kind of part of the face, just as if you look in the image you can see there is a light kind of a yellow ochre tint to where the cloth is. It's not pure white, it's not grey. And then need to clean up the pastel, so using the scrap paper, get rid of any of the colours on there. Now using the white pastel as a blending tool, and I'm going to go over these darker areas to kind of just tone them down, make them look a little more grey, not quite so black. And then using the back, it's nice and clean, just going to add in the white, which will also mix in with the yellow ochre kind of colour that I've already placed there. So it should turn a more creamy kind of tone. If you find it's not turning the colour that you want it to, you can always add a little bit more yellow over the top. So it's got a yellow ochre just over the top where you want it. You have to press down quite heavy with these pastels. You also notice you're using sugar paper, because the sugar paper has what's called a tooth, so it's got a texture to it which takes the pastel much easier. Now here, where it's a little bit darker on the image, I'm just going to put down a light layer of the white pastel. So I'm just blending in that darker bit there, and then using again the black very lightly. It's important that you always add just a very light shade of the black, because it will go much darker when you add the white on top. So you can see there we've got a darker grey now, just from that little bit of pastel that I put on there. See, it doesn't take a lot to make a big difference. So just blending that back together. Now because it's lighter here, I'm going to use the back of the oil pastel, the clean part, to kind of just show that light area there. It's a little bit darker again here, so I'm just going to add a little touch of black just to make that a touch darker. So you can see now we're getting a lighter shade there where the nose is. So you've got the light shade here and you've got the light shade there. We've also got this crease down here, so I'm just going to add in that crease, and this bit here on the image is darker, so again just added a touch of the black to get a darker shade in there, and then using the clean part I'm adding in the lighter oil pastel. So we started to get a bit of form now to this face. So just keep going. So as we're going along, I'm looking for where the tones are. Look at the shape of the tone. So we've got a bit more of a kind of a heavier shadow here because the crease is a bit more kind of prominent. I just add in this bottom part now of the cloth, which has got some highlights on there because the light's hitting it, but then there's a bit of a shadow just underneath here. So again, very lightly with the black, and I need to just check parts of my drawing. So there's a little bit of a crease here, blending that out into the background. Touch of black just there, tiny amount there, so I'm just adding a little spot of the black, that's all. I'm just going to check my tones. I'm going to add a little bit more of this kind of gold, this ochre colour just over the top here, over the white, just to get rid of the solid white effect, and I'm just going to blend that back in with a clean part. Of the pastel. Alright, this bit here on this side should be much darker, so I'm just going to emphasize that nose a little bit, and just the side of the face here where it joins to the second face, the female's face. So I'm keeping that darker there just to kind of make that part stick out a little bit more. Just go back over it again very lightly, still always very lightly with the black, and then blending it back in just to emphasize this part down here. You can use your fingers to blend, you can use rolled up paper called a torchon, but sometimes just using the pastels themselves is the easiest way. So there you can see you're beginning to get that effect now of this kind of cloth over the person's face. Just do a few checks to see where there's any kind of shadows or highlights. But what I'm not doing is adding a bold line around the edge. We don't want that. You're letting the light and the shadow build up the form of the cloth over the face.